Welcome to a Trekzone conversation. Matt Miller with you. Today, my guest is Ben Robinson from Eaglemoss. I'm very excited about this guest because he's the man behind so many of the great collectibles across our favorite franchises. Not only that, but he's an author as well on several illustrated handbooks from across the Star Trek universe. His latest one, the Deep Space Nine Illustrated Manual, is out now. He's going to be chatting with me about all of that on today's show.
On Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube for over 550 episodes. This is a Trekzone conversation.
And Ben is on the line now for me. Ben, thanks for beaming in and having a Trekzone conversation.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Now, you're working with Eaglemoss on the Starship designs, on these Starship models, and so much more. What's the inspiration been for you to create these models?
Oh my God.
Such a loaded question to start off.
It's like, I know. It's like, oh, what's your reason for living? What do you do? Well, I mean, we make collectibles. I always have done. So when I started working in this business, oh my God, 24 years ago, on Star Trek, funnily enough. And we've done lots of different collectibles, so lots of figurines, diecast car collections, build-up cars, all that kind of stuff. And we had looked at doing a Star Trek figurine collection, little statues, and that didn't really work. It was mostly my fault, I think. I didn't do a brilliant job. But as we were doing that, we realized that what people really wanted was ships. And I also realized that I wouldn't say you can't get a ship wrong, but you can get a ship absolutely right because it's always the same. I mean, it turns out to be a bit more complicated than that, but it's basically always the same. And I knew where to get the original visual effects models from, the CG ones, and we were able to literally use those to make our models. So it seemed like we couldn't screw it up too much.
And there has been such a huge run on these starships, over 160 issues, I believe now. It's been extended.
Yeah, 180, yeah.
It's incredible that it just keeps extending.
Yeah, well, we do. I mean, the main subscription program ran for 180 issues, and perhaps it's still running in a few places in the world. I mean, you can still sign up anywhere in the world, but it's, some people are still waiting for their first chance to get issue 171 or something like that. But on top of that, we've done a Discovery collection. We're just about to launch a new collection that combines Discovery, Picard, and Strange New Worlds, which isn't even out yet. We've done larger ships. We've done special. I mean, I think we're up certainly around the 250 mark, probably pushing 300 now. I've lost track, to be honest with you.
And it's not just Star Trek. It's Doctor Who, the Orville, Battlestar, Galactica, Marvel, DC, Back to the Future. There's so many franchises that Eaglemoss has collectibles in. I think this is something that's maybe a little bit underestimated in terms of a market that's out there, that it is quite a big collection or quite a big market for collectibles.
Certainly, if you wanted to buy everything that we've ever made, you'd have to have a biggish house.
And you would appreciate that because you could have a biggish house.
I don't take much home with me. Well, it's difficult now because work and home are the same place. So I have a lot of books, but I don't have, to disappoint people, I don't have like a whole armada of ships. We've done well over 1,000 figurines. 3 big build-up cars. There's got a big build-up model of the Enterprise D. Like I said, 300 odd Star Trek ships, and then you've got Alien and Battlestar Galactica on top of that. So, I mean, it's a lot of stuff, yeah. And everybody here works incredibly hard. It's better than a real job, I guess. But it's hard work at the same time.
Does it astound you that there are people out there with complete collections that they've bought over the time and they have them in their homes on display?
I love seeing pictures of people's displays at home. I mean, I feel slightly guilty. I've always had that thing of like people going, "Oh, my girlfriend or my wife or my husband" in some cases.
It absolutely is. Now, it's not just collectibles that you're working on as well. I got an email earlier in the week about the Deep Space Nine illustrated manual that has come out with your name on it as well. Can you tell us a little bit about this book?
Yeah, so it's the fourth in our series of illustrated handbooks. So way back when, or those 24 years ago that I was describing, I started to work on something called the Star Trek Fact File, which I would say is like memory alpha on paper. This was before the internet was a big deal. It's when we used to sit there and wait half an hour to get a 30-second trailer for the next episode, and it was about the size of a postage stamp. So the wikis weren't even a thing back then. But we did this massive paper encyclopedia, which it ran for 6 years. I think it had well over 9,000 pages to it. And I've always been keen to go back and to pull some of that material out and to make it a little bit more coherent, to put it back together in a sort of a completely logical way. So we did a whole book that was just about, so the Deep Space Nine one is the latest one. And it shows you like every location on the station that you saw with any decent half view of it. It's got the Defiant, it's got the Runabout, it's got stuff about all the systems, the history of the station. And the big sort of centerpiece of it is these isometric room drawings for every major sat. So you can actually kind of look at the promenade and work out where everything was on the promenade, which is a pretty cool thing to be able to do. I was lucky enough actually to walk around the promenade just as they were tearing it down. And it was an extraordinary thing. You're like, oh, that's where that is. That connects to that. You can go from there to there. And given that set's long gone, the illustration is the next best thing. But yeah, so those are based on the original fact file stuff, plus there was some more stuff we've done since then, so like the CG models of the ships and things like that. And we were lucky enough to be able to add the bridge of the new Discovery version of the Enterprise, the Strange New Worlds version, as it will soon be, to our 1701 handbook as well, which was pretty cool. I was happy to be able to do that.
And it really helps with, like you say, being able to access these sets, moving forward with new Star Trek content as well. I think that's the best part for Eaglemoss, is that there's going to be some new canon stuff to dive into and sink teeth into. What are the plans? Are there any sort of plans for the future that you can tease us with?
Well, we're doing ships based on all the shows that are in production at the moment. So Lower Decks will be out maybe the beginning of next year, maybe the end of this year. It's just on the cusp. And then we've got Picard, so we've got La Sirena is actually out in April. And that will be followed by a load of other ships from Picard, and then ships from Discovery. There are a load of ships from Discovery, including the Discovery A itself with its floating nacelles, which is an interesting challenge for us. And then we will be doing Strange New Worlds. I mean, to be honest, we don't know very much about Strange New Worlds. We know what everybody else knows, but we're pretty sure there'll be some ships in it, so we'll be doing those. We've got some other things up our sleeve. We've got not so much new Star Trek, but we've got this great big model of the Enterprise D, as I said, which is taking me a couple of years to get to a point where I'm happy with it.
Wow. That Enterprise D is going to be really fascinating. Unfortunately, not coming to the Australian market, but Build Your Own Enterprise D is just a fantastic concept. And for those lucky enough to be able to do it, it's going to be an amazing thing to watch as people post their progress for it to come. I wanted to ask, actually, one thing I'd almost forgotten. What's the design process for a ship that we see on screen to get it into a Starship collection? So like the Cerritos from Lower Decks, talking about being the end of the year, is there sort of maybe a 1 to 2 year time frame to get that into people's hands?
Yeah, that's about right. It's about a year. The Cerritos is an interesting one, or the Lower Deck stuff is interesting because of the nature of the paint on it, and we'd like it to look as if it's animated. but we're going to have to play around a little bit to see how, because it may be a speed that it just looks like a regular ship. I mean, it'll look it lacks a few details. Certainly the season 1 version of the model has a few things missing from it. There's the, I think there are a couple of RCS thrusters that ought to be there that aren't, and phaser strips and that kind of thing, or transporter emitters certainly. But yeah, generally speaking, so we get the visual effects model either from the archive that we have painstakingly reassembled of all the stuff that was done for Voyager and Deep Space Nine, or now with the new shows, we get it direct from the visual effects team. And then we have to do a bit of work on it. I mean, the new models are huge and massive, and we have to resample all the textures because they have this very clever software that's sort of like, oh, it's a long way away, I'll render it very simply, or it's up close, I'll render it in real detail. And all of that information is held in the model, and unless you have some very expensive rendering software, you can't do that. So so we have to modify that a bit, and then we send that 3D file over to the factory. They come back with their kind of, this is how we would actually physically make it, their suggestions about how to do that. And then we kind of, we missed a bit here or there, or sometimes you get things that are in the bump maps. I don't know how technical people are about CG, but, a CG model has kind of got clothes on it, and sometimes those clothes have a bit of texture in it that it's better for you to make it actually parts of the model. And then, we go back and forth. Then they had to make the tools to actually sort of physically produce these things. And then they start sending us versions that we comment on the painting. We go back and forth a few times on that before it's kind of finally signed off. Then they have to make them, and then they literally get on the slow boat from China to wherever you are.
Well, it is absolutely fantastic, Ben. A little bit of an insight into Eaglemoss today on a Trekzone conversation. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to, as I said, seeing people create the Enterprise D, and looking forward to reading more in depth of the Deep Space Nine illustrated manual. I got sent over a press copy, and I'm just, it's amazing. The detail in it is so incredible.
I was going to say, tell me more, because I mean, we never really get to talk to people about these things. I mean, particularly not these days. Particularly, you can't go to a convention. You can't say to someone, "Well, does it have enough detail? Does it tell you things you didn't know?"
It certainly does. I mean, I dived into, admittedly, in a little bit of research, dived into the first, I think it was handful, maybe dozen pages of Deep Space Nine, learning about the background, seeing those images as well, just the whole collation of the book as really an engineering manual, if you will. You could believe that you were an engineering graduate of the academy on your way out, and you would be given something like this, with all the detail, with learning all the specifics about the power generation, the construction of the station, and also the little tidbits from episodes about things that might have happened in, say, these quarters or this office or stuff like that. Seeing the photos collated as well, like there clearly is a lot of research and a lot of time that's got into making the book, and I think it's over 100 pages as well, which I think is just incredible.
Oh, yes, like 250 or something like that. I think there are 60 or 70 illustration. I mean, there's a lot. They're big books. They're hefty books. That's part of their appeal.
And the one thing that I miss in getting the PDF press copy is the actual physical copy, that hard copy. Even for me, I think I've got to rush out and find a place to buy this in hardcover, and discovering that there are more of these out there as well. I think you've gone and created something for me, Ben.
Oh, good. Well, I can tell you even more. We also did a book. I think got quite a lot of fuss last year, looking back at Voyager for the celebration. So we did that was a real pleasure last year doing that, and talked to all of the cast and most of the crew as well, to be honest, for that. And then we also do these books that I call Jane's Fighting Ships of Science Fiction Jokes. So they're like it's the encyclopedia of all the different ships. And then we do sort of books about the design process for the ships as well, to show you all the kind of roads not taken and abandoned ideas. So yeah, there's quite a lot out there. I realise why I'm so tired now.
Fantastic, Ben. We'll gonna let you get back to it. Really appreciate your time on today's Trekzone conversation, and let's stay in touch as more great stuff comes. Strange New Worlds is only going to bring you more work to do.
It's true. I hope so. And thank you. It's been a real pleasure.